Jeff and Will, welcome everybody back to the show. Joining us now, as she always does at this time, it is the executive editor of rcbizjournal.com, Tina Trasser. Good morning, Tina. How are you?
Good morning. What a glorious day and happy spring to Rockland County.
Indeed, a happy spring it is. How are you marking the first day of spring? Do you do anything special?
Today?
Yeah, sure. Well, it is today. Sure, why not?
Yes, I will be doing a post-mortem of the legal challenge in Rockland County over term limits in Clarkstown.
Oh, that's how we love to celebrate every spring, isn't it?
Yes, that's the equinox.
There you go.
That's the real change. No, I will be getting out there and probably doing a Tai Chi class later. That will probably be my treat for the day.
There you go.
But for now, I thought that we would have something of a meaningful postmortem to talk about what this lawsuit was really about, why Mr. Hoehmann lost this suit, and what it means. So let's start with this. Everybody obviously knows that Mr. Hoehmann, Franchino, and resident Foley lost the case in Rockland Supreme Court last week. The judge basically upheld Clarkstown's 8-year term limit, which sunsets Hoehmann's ability to run again for the town supervisor. Now, the judge really, this is interesting, she focused her ruling on the premise that the plaintiff's claims were time-barred by the statute of limitations. And one thing I will say that's interesting is, really, had it not been for the work of the intervening attorney, rather than Kevin Conway, who's the deputy town attorney representing the town, I don't know what direction this case would have gone in. But this, originally the Frank Borelli and Pat Carroll had hired an attorney and had argued that Kevin Conway was conflicted because he worked for the town. The judge allowed him to represent the town, but she also allowed this intervening attorney. And I recall when I read his very well-crafted briefs, although at that time there was a lot of signaling, particularly from the supervisor, that this was a walk in the park for him, I really thought otherwise, because he had made a very compelling argument that in order to have brought this case, it had to have been done within 4 months in an Article 78. There was a 4-month statute of limitations was applicable, and in fact, that is exactly what the judge said. She said the court is bound by, now this is a little technical, but the Second Department's decision in a case called Islandia that finds that the plaintiff's challenge to the statute of limitations could have been maintained in an Article 78 proceeding. It wasn't lost on anybody in the court that day, not the day that she ruled, but when they had oral argument, that the very Second Appellate Department decision was written by Mr. Spolzino, who was representing Mr. Hoehmann, and so he was sort of having to argue against what he had written. And that's just kind of a detail, but again, it was a little bit easy to see the way this was going to go. And we did report on all of this, so anybody who was closely following the reporting might not have been quite as shocked. It seemed as though this decision sent some shockwaves around, but again, I have to say that I wasn't entirely shocked once I understood what the judge had to work with. Now, there's a secondary issue, and that has to do with the basis of this argument, which was always about how the town law was passed without a public referendum, and that a supermajority law needs a referendum. Now, even here, the judge did not agree with that argument. Mr. Hoehmann's attorney tried to argue that the law was never valid in the first place. The judge did not buy that. She certainly didn't buy that. And not only that, but the effect, if this case had been won by Mr. Hoehmann, would have been that any supermajority law that's not been passed by a referendum throughout the county would be subject to a challenge, and it would mean that many laws, including the one that governs the transit-oriented development, what we call the TOD in Nanuet, as well as the active adult residential law, which governs how many units can be built in Clarkstown. The point is, there are many laws on the books that involve this supermajority. They were not adopted by referendum, and I think that this would have kind of, blown those precedents out of the water, and it would have created a lot of havoc. I don't know that the judge even thought about that. It didn't seem that was any part of her language or ruling, or maybe not even her thinking, but it would have been the collateral damage had this case gone the other way. Now, question?
No, I was waiting till you were finished, but I did want to know if you thought that an appeal might be coming in the near future.
That's where I was going next.
Okay.
Great minds think alike.
Indeed.
No, I think when anybody loses a case, their gut instinct is to say, I'm going to appeal. But I think in this case, now, I'm always surprised, but I would be surprised if an appeal is mounted because, for one thing, an appeal is very expensive. For another thing, this judge was pretty thorough in the way she argued her opinion. And thirdly, and this I rely the least on this, but sources tell me that he has been advised not to appeal. Will he take that advice? I really don't know. He's been a bit absent lately, so it's hard to say. But I think that even on appeal, he probably will not prevail. And so I think what we're looking at in Clarkstown moving forward is that term limits have stuck. I think, it probably raises a question all around the county as to, are term limits a good thing or a bad thing? I saw a lot of chatter about that on Facebook. I guess that's a personal decision, what people think of that. But the point is that they were voted on once upon a time ago in Clarkstown, and they will endure.
One of the arguments that I know George Hoehmann has made in the past was that he was under the impression other towns would follow suit and also pass a term limits law as they did, which it turns out they have not. Do you think that? What do you think about term limits in general, just from your perspective and having been a voter for a while? What do you think about the idea of term limits?
A long while, 20 years I've been in this county. I'm in favor of them. I'm in favor of them. We see what happens when elected officials get too comfortable. We have a federal government that shakes up. I think that it would be a good thing. I think that
No, we don't. Wait a minute. We don't. We don't have term limits at any level at the federal level except for the president.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Yeah, but that doesn't shake up anything. You have people in the Senate for 50 years, and sometimes they're good at what they do, and sometimes they're not. So I mean,
I was going to say the presidency, and I was thinking about the presidency as an equivalency. I think people think that that George Hoehmann can be the only supervisor of Clarkstown. I mean, I've heard people say, "Oh my God, what a vacuum!" Who's going to step? As if nobody else can step in and take this supervisory role. I think that's an interesting perception out there that one supervisor is so entrenched that we can't pass along the baton. I don't know. I don't actually think that's healthy for democracy, but it's just an opinion. I mean, I don't have a definitive. It's just an opinion. I am in favor of term limits. Are you not?
I have a hard time with it. But I like it in some cases. So I'm kind of on the fence on it. I really haven't come to a conclusion yet. I don't know. I don't like when someone's in office for 50 years, but it's hard for me to say to and out. There's got to be a medium. There's got to be something in between. Maybe that would work in some cases.
Well, this allowed for 8 years. I think 8 years.
Which is 4 terms, right?
Okay, and prior to that,
8 years is a while.
It is. It's a good while. That's 2 presidential terms, right? And in the case of Hoehmann, he was on the council before that, so I think he's been there for 12 years. There's some talk about. Let's just put it this way: I wouldn't be surprised to see that he pops up either at Rockland Green, the county solid waste management authority. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him in the sewer authority. He's on the list of RCC. They're still doing an executive search for a new president.
Right.
But as I understand, he's not in the top pickings there. So I think that what happens is a lot of public servants they want to collect the pensions at the end of it, and they look for they look to stay for a very long time. Is that healthy? I don't know. Does that work for us as a society? This is a philosophical conversation.
Sure.
And I think what it is when people, when they're the incumbents are people who the people want and like, they're swayed. If term limits precludes that candidate from being able to stay in office, they don't want term limits. Or if people are against that candidate, they might think, oh, thank goodness for term limits. But I think we have to think of term limits not about the one person or the one candidate or the one incumbent. We have to think about it philosophically, and I guess Clarkstown did that in 2015 and took the very bold step of passing term limits. I mean, there was much deliberation. Hoehmann, in fact, was an advocate of it at the time. Will this happen in other municipalities, other towns in the county? It might. It should. Maybe it would be a good thing. I mean, there are some incumbents who have been in office a very long time. I don't know that that's particularly healthy for certain municipalities. Maybe this decision sparks a good conversation. That's a good thing.
And speaking of conversation, we do have a caller for you. So real quick, we're going to go to the phones with just about a minute left. Hi, Gracie, you're on with Tina Traster.
Hi, it's Gracie. Listen, Tina, I want to just ask you from a business point of view, how do you think Hoehmann ran the town for 8 years? And also, all politicians don't die; they become judges. And that's I play on words. But how do you think, because you're a businesswoman, how do you think the county has been run? Because I think our fiscals have been well, obviously.
Well, you have to. There's a few. First of all, Mr. Hoehmann does not have a legal degree, so I don't think we're going to see him in a judgeship with a gavel. But just a prediction there. The garbage got picked up, the roads got salted, there was a general sense of order. He certainly made himself accessible, and he was sort of omnipresent, I mean, virtually everywhere, all the time. Everywhere, all the time. What's the title of that film? Everything, all the time, whatever that film is.
Everything everywhere, all at once.
Yeah, that could probably describe his tenure. He should get a T-shirt. But where the thing is that he stayed under the cap, but he was obliged to stay under the cap in terms of tax increases. Where we have accelerated in our fiscal deficit is in a lot of money has been. There's a lot of bonding that has gone on in the town.
And so, Tina, I'm sorry, we're going to have to end it there because we're coming up on a paid segment, so we're going to have to go. Thank you, Gracie, for your question. Tina, thank you so much for joining us as well. Everybody visit rcbizjournal.com for more information about that. Sign up for some newsletters. It's a great read. Thank you, Tina. Have a great day.
Bye, you too.
Bye.